Perfect. All right. Welcome back to another edition of Baseball for Maniacs. Guys, I got the man, the myth, the legend himself, Jackie Baseball, to come on to the pod. Jack, thank you for coming on. Just introduce yourself to the viewers. I'm sure they already know who you are, but just give them a little rundown about yourself.
Yeah, of course. Well, it seems like a fitting podcast to come on because, fellow baseball sicko over here. But so I have podcast, High Hopes, which is our baby, me and James Seltzer. And
Legend.
it's like our favorite thing in the world to do. So, the Phillies, I always consider like another family member for me. So I got a podcast, co-host on a radio show on WIP, the flagship of the Phillies, and co-authored a book all about the Phillies as well. So
Ring the bell, baby.
Ring the bell. Yep. So that's a quick rundown, I guess, of who I am.
Perfect. Yeah. And like I said, guys, I've been watching Jack for a few years, and it's kind of hard to relate to someone who is as big of a Phillies fan as I am. Because when I tell people my hobbies, I'm like, it's the Phillies. Like, of course, you got other things you like to do. You love your family, but it's like the Phillies is an extension of your family. They are with you for literally 12 months out of the year. During the season, you got your 8 months. But look at us now in January, talking Phillies baseball. There's nothing better to do.
No. They and there's something about the connection with the baseball team. I think it's something about them being there every single night or every single day, and it's time of the year where it's more laid back, and then the second that playoff baseball hits, you want to die. So it's I don't know, man. I've always had some just an obsession with the team from a young age, and growing up, I always thought everyone was like me. And then I was like, well, people have lives, So yeah, it's really tough to explain. I've kind of given up trying to explain what they mean to me. I guess the best way to do it, and you kind of summed it up well there. They're just another member of your family. I got my two boys, my wife, my parents, and Phil's baseball. That's kind of what it is.
That's awesome, man. So basically, you kind of also summed it up about what being a Phillies fan means to you. It's really hard to explain, but it's just part of our daily lives, man. And it's like going back on the postseason baseball point you made. It is a legit anxiety attack, but you have to calm yourself because you have to be locked into the game because you have to really see what's going on. But it's just so hard. Like I go to Red October every year. I was in the stadium for game 1 and game 2 of the Dodgers. Man, it's just when they're doing well, it's an unbelievable feeling. And when they're like struggling, it's also like an unbelievable feeling. It's just, you kind of have to experience it for yourself to kind of understand. You get it. I get it. I'm sure the viewers watching this get it. But yeah, man, being a Phillies fan, it's insane, but I wouldn't change it for the world.
No. And I always tell myself that when they win, it's going to make it that much sweeter. I'm one of these weirdos that I prefer a good amount of time in between championships, because if you win one, 5 years apart, you kind of just won, and it doesn't matter as much. But you start getting into 10 plus years, and the trek that we went through, to get to where we are now, it's going to be the greatest thing in the world. And it's one of those things where it's almost just when they lost to the Dodgers this year, it was the first time in a while I had done maybe next year's our year. And that's such an old just all Philadelphia thing to do, where it's just, yeah, maybe next year's our year. And I don't know, I've kind of gotten to that with this team, where it's just eventually they're going to do it. And I can't wait for the day that it happens.
Counting down the seconds, baby. All right. So going back on that point, I just want to ask you about the 2025 season in a whole and the playoffs, the ending to the Dodgers. Just kind of get your viewpoint. Because for me personally, man, I really thought this was the year they were going to get it done. When they got Bader, the way they played down the stretch, even after going down 0-2, I'm like, just get game 3, man. Just get game 3. And then we're up 1-0. Christopher Sanchez, 2-2 pitch to Alex Call. I probably watch that once a week, which also makes me a psychopath. But I'm just like, not if that call would have gone our way, we would have won. But I firmly believe we would have won. That's just me being a Phillies fan. So just kind of like let the viewers know your viewpoint on the 2025 season and how it ended.
Yeah, I mean, it really felt like, especially, like you said, after they got Bader, the Duran thing, the way they were playing, they were starting to roll teams. And you didn't really, you really didn't have that fear of the offense. I mean, of course, there's always the fear of the offense, just like going cold, but also that is playoff baseball. But I didn't have this sense of dread that they were going to go cold. And I don't even know if you can pinpoint, like, they just barely lost. I mean, they just barely lost. Game one, JT hits the triple, and then Sanchez just leaves a slider up a little bit to Kike, and Strahm misses a spot by 100 feet, and Teoscar doesn't miss it, and it was a bummer, but they were right there. Game two, we know they came back, and the Stott bunt happens, and if that doesn't happen, who knows how that game goes? And then, game four, so it's just. I think that it was the two of the best teams in baseball. I think the Blue Jays ended up being the second best team in baseball, but I think the Phillies were the third. And, they kind of just lost, and it sucked. And I have not watched the video yearbook yet. I was getting the boys down and eating some dinner. So after I am done with this, I'm going to be watching the video yearbook. But it just stinks because they had some of the years that you were looking for. They had a Trey top 5 MVP year. They had Schwarber top 5 MVP. They had Chris Sanchez second in Cy Young. They got a closer finally. The bullpen was in pretty good shape, and they just ran into a team that might rattle off 2 more championships, 3 more. Like they might have ran into an all-time team, and it stinks, but. It kind of is what it is.
Yeah, and I totally agree because in 23, that hurt the most because I felt like that was the year to get it. Losing to Arizona, losing to an inferior team, that sucks. And then the Mets in 2024, that Mets team was not good. I get it. They were hot. They were the team of destiny, quote unquote. You lost in the NLCS. You're not a team of destiny. So that kind of like pissed me off. But like you said, 2025, game one was right there for the taking. Maybe if Rob doesn't put out David Robertson for another up down.
Oh, yes. That's another one I forgot. I hate that. It's my least favorite thing that managers do in baseball.
Dude, because me and my dad go to the games, and obviously we were listening to WIP. But before we listened to WIP in the post game, we just kind of like talk ourselves, like kind of do a little therapy session. And my dad knows baseball, but he's not like me. And he had the same like reaction. What the hell is he doing? And I'm like, we had 5 days of rest.
Mm-hmm.
Let Strahm start the inning, because what Strahm did is he came in and he got the 2 outs. And then, like you said, he just left one up to Teoscar Hernandez. And it's just like those little things are just like you look back and you're like, damn. But then game 2, the bunt. And I'm not putting it all on Rob because you have to execute. Like Jesus Lazaro executed in game 2. The offense didn't really show up until the 9th, until our beloved Blake Trident came in.
The best.
Dude, I was like, there's no way Dave Roberts is really doing this, right? And then I'm like, and then you just lose. But then game 3, we crush them. In game 4, it's like you lost in 11 innings on a botched ball by Ryan Kirkering. Not his fault. You lost 2-1, and you lost to the better team, but it was inches. It was this close. So I'm excited for the 2026 season, but 2025 definitely is going to take a while to get over.
Well, I don't know. Like it's 22 is I mean 22 the game 5 is the one I look at in 2022, and I don't know if I'll ever get over it. I mean 2022 game 5 had everything. It had Hoskins striking out with Verlander on the ropes. It had Schwarber hitting a ball 110 miles an hour right at Trey Mancini, who can't field a ground ball to save his life.
Defensive replacement. Like, are you kidding me? Like, yeah.
You have Brandon Marsh not getting a job done with a runner on third, less than 2 outs, and then you have the Jazz catch. So, like I mean, you can go through all these games. I mean, you have the Kimbrel games in Arizona. You have the Rojas at bat in Game 7 of the Diamondback series. You have, I mean, the Lindor grand slam against Carlos Estevez. But again, I've said this on the podcast in a sick way. It puts hair in your chest. It really, these are things I'm never gonna get over. Ryan, like, how old are you?
I'm 25.
Okay, so you're conscious for the Ryan Howard blown.
Yes, I grew up. I became a fan right in the 08 era. I started really locking in 09, but I was only 10, 11. But it's kind of insane. Like, I really started diving in when they were in their rough era, like 2012 to 2021.
Yeah.
And going back on the point of when you said when we eventually do win it all, God willing, it's going to make all those years of going through that pain worth it. And when 2022 happened and they finally got in my head, I'm like, thank God they just got in. Whatever happens in the playoffs happens.
Yeah.
And then they went on the craziest run ever. So when we lost, yes, it was crushing. But in my head, and I guess in my innocence of being a young fan, I'm like, oh, we'll be back. And we did get back, not to the World Series, but to the NLCS. But 2023, that's the one for me where I woke up the next day and I genuinely was like, that didn't just happen. Like, I had to go to work, obviously, have to make a living. And of course, you get all the texts from all your people. How are you doing? I'm not doing okay, man. Like, genuinely, I'm not in a good headspace. And then 2024, yeah, 2025, but 2023 is the one for me.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Yeah. No, I feel you. I remember. Yeah, I remember doing the post game. I did the pregame for Game 6.
Okay.
And there was such a weird feeling in the building. I couldn't explain it, but I was like, and I wrote this in the book a couple times, but I always feel like I have to be Paul Revere of Phillies fans, where it's like, no, don't get confident. And I just remember doing pregame for Game 6 before Nola got, playoff Knowles. But and I was like, man, people are way too confident. They don't know this team. Like, this is a vintage letdown spot. And then Game 7, there's nothing worse than that park when it gets tight, because every single person feels it. And when the ballpark gets tight, that's usually when I have to go on my solo walks around the ballpark just to be alone.
Dude, let me tell you this quick story before I get into my new point. So I live in Florida now. I went to school here and I moved here permanently. So yeah, so Game 6 happens, right? This is 2023, and my dad obviously still lives in New Jersey. That's where I'm from, and he shows up at my door unexpected. He flew down before Game 6, and like unreal, right? Like almost psychotic how eerie it is to where this was going to be our real chance to celebrate the pennant, because I was in Florida when they won the pennant in 22. And we're hyped, man. We're having a few drinks before the game, and then Gurriel hits that homer, right? And then Pham hits the homer. And I kid you not, me and my dad did not speak a word after the second inning. And then Game 7, we just watched at a bar. And it was like, I kind of get your point here. Once the stadium gets quiet, dude, my living room got quiet. And it was just like that bad feeling. But hey, 2026, man, it was always the 2026 Phils.
Yeah, some dumb podcast said that at one point, and then we re-upped it to maybe the 2027 Phillies, and then we re-upped it to the 2030s Phillies. They're gonna be a wagon. But I as long as we land a certain former Blue Jays shortstop, I will be. I mean, I'm already obviously excited, like can't wait. But man, if you got him, like the excitement and juice is through the roof.
Dude, I posted on my TikTok. I was like, this was on Monday. I said, happy holidays to anyone that's celebrating the Bo Bichette Phillies meeting day, for all those who celebrate.
Yeah.
So let's get into our first point. Not Bo, but just your reaction to the Ranger Suarez signing. I broke this down on my YouTube episode, kind of how this helps the Phillies with Ranger going to the Red Sox. But just give me your thoughts on the Ranger Suarez signing with Boston.
Yeah, so I mean, first off, love Ranger. You want to talk about huge stones in the postseason, and if Zach Wheeler didn't exist, and like 08 Cole Hamels didn't exist, 09 Cole Hamels did exist, but Ranger Suarez for me is the second best big game pitcher I've seen in my life. Well, that's all. Man, we've had some money guys here. I mean, Halladay was obviously Halladay.
Cliff Lee.
Regardless, well, Cliff Lee blew the game 2 up 4-0 and whatever. But no, I'm just kidding. Every time he threw them out in the postseason, he had confidence he's going to come through. I mean, even the game against the Dodgers this year was just like, of course, Ranger's going to go and do that. So I love Ranger Suarez. I love his demeanor on the mound. I love how he feels his position. I love the nonchalantness, and he's just the man. I think Ranger Suarez is the man, and I'm glad he got paid like that. So I would not have paid 5 years, $130 million for Ranger. I have real durability concerns. Velocity is already starting to go down. He's not the most velo guy in the world, but still, it's gone down. over the last couple of years. You're paying for October because he's going to have his spurts in the middle of the season where he's on the IL or, gets shelled for like 4 starts in a row and then kind of figures it out. So, you know, I think it's great from the standpoint of the Bo Bichette thing because I would be just floored if they all of a sudden now hand out 2 5+ year deals to free agents. So on one hand, very happy for Ranger, a great Philly. And then on the other hand, I just think it really helps the Phillies with Bo Bichette and coming here.
Yeah. And I kind of got into the sense of going to this offseason that Ranger Suarez was not going to be a Philadelphia Philly. It just comes to that time where when you hit free agency, you can't pay everyone. And John Middleton, top 4 payroll. But I do think this helps out the case of extending Jesus Luzardo because I think they need to do that right now because I did a video on top 5 breakout players. Now, not that Jesus Luzardo, if he has a great year, is kind of breaking out because he did have a really good 2025 besides the 2 blow-up starts back-to-back Milwaukee and Toronto when he was tipping pitches. But I think if he has a season that I believe he will have, he's going to cost a lot in free agency next year. So I'm thinking maybe once, hopefully, we get Bo Bichette, figure out what our team is going into the next season before spring training, like a 4-year, 120. I think that's completely in the books for Jesus Luzardo.
Yeah. I'm sure they're going to do whatever it takes to not have it affect the payroll this year. I think it started after this year. And yeah, I mean, Luzardo said the other day that he wants to sign here. He should want to sign here. Caleb Gotham is a wizard. You got the most out of Luzardo. Now, he made 32 starts once before, and that was in 23. So I think he really just started scratching the surface last year. I love Jesus Luzardo, and if you took out those 2 starts you mentioned, he pitches to like that 3.03 ERA, I believe.
Yep.
And then he also did have that weird thing. I remember the Red Sox start. He got kind of lit up a little bit, like he was shoving, and then in the
5 inning shove, and then Rob Refsnyder just puts one a grand slam on Sunday Night Baseball. That was tough.
Should have been a Phil. Robbie Ref. But I think what impressed me the most about Luzardo is when they signed him or when they traded for him. One of the things that they said was this guy's a bulldog, and I just didn't believe him. I always thought that he was a guy that nibbled and just kind of was too obsessed with striking guys out rather than pitching sometimes. And there's a difference. I mean, there's times where guys are just going for strikeouts and times where you can pitch to contact and get outs. And I was so impressed by some of the starts late in the season. That was the Mets start that he went absolutely bonkers. And then in the postseason, I mean, he shoved against that Dodgers team, and what he did out of the bullpen was remarkable. So I would be very surprised if they didn't extend Jesus Luzardo. Dave Dombrowski is a starters guy. The fact that they didn't sign Imai or another starter this offseason or make a trade for a starter this offseason kind of suggests that they are going to be able to go and get Luzardo done. And I think Luzardo wants to be here. I think they want him here. And, 4/120 sounds about right. I mean, it might start with a 3, like a $30 million a year thing. But with Wheeler supposedly retiring after 27, the freaking albatross of a Nola contract that we're just counting down the days until it's over. And
even year Nola 2026, don't forget. He's coming back.
Yeah, I keep forgetting that his ERA was in the 6s last year, but I would be surprised if they didn't extend to Jesus, and I really hope they do it because I love the guy.
Same. I think he's funny because it's like if you listen to him speak like to the media, and obviously I watched the end of year yearbook. I'm not going to spoil it for you, but he's very, of course, would never do that. So he's a very soft-spoken person, but when he gets on that mound, you just see it in his eyes. I remember his first start at CBP against the Dodgers when he was in the damn City Connects. And I was like, get this man on a Red October mound. And he did his job. We know what happened. But, yeah, let's extend Jesus Luzardo.
Yeah.
All right.
Love
and then the prime of the episode, Bo Bichette. Talk to me your feelings. I saw your takes on him through High Hopes, through WIP. I know how much you love the guy, but just tell the viewers how important a Bo Bichette signing to the Phillies would be for the 2026 season and beyond.
Well, they've needed a right-handed bat for 3 seasons, so that and it's kind of the time to do it. They have some money coming off the books next year. They're in the prime. They went out and paid Schwarber. Had they not paid Schwarber, maybe it's one of these things where they just blow it up a little bit and kind of restart. Well, they didn't do that. So I think on one hand, the Phillies are almost surprised that they're in it, and I think the Blue Jays focusing on Kyle Tucker has made him available. I think that's where I think heading into the offseason, Bichette's like, I'm going to re-sign with the Blue Jays, and then circumstances kind of changed here, and I think that he is someone that you talk about a top of a lineup all of a sudden of Turner, Bichette, Harper, Schwarber. I mean, that is a bear for opposing teams to get through. So I think the Phillies are viewing this as we have a chance to add an impact bat for not a crazy amount of money for a 28-year-old that was 27 now, gonna be 28 by opening day. I think they view this as an opportunity, much like Castellanos was. Didn't work out,
Yeah.
but much like Castellanos was, where he's sitting there, JT's dragging his feet, and they're like, well, why would we pay JT this money when we can go get a difference maker? Because JT, at this point in his career, love him, but I don't think he's a difference maker. I think you're paying for what he brings to the pitching staff. So I just think that they're starting to view it as we have a chance to get a real star, a real impact player, a top 25. I mean, they might if they can add him, they'll have Schwarber, Turner, Harper, Bichette, all top 30 position players in baseball, top 25 position players in baseball. I mean, that's how you knock down the door of the Dodgers. Is you got to kind of outstar them. So it's really exciting. If you asked me when the offseason started, if they'd re-sign Schwarber and they'd somehow get Bo Bichette, I would have said there's no freaking way.
Yeah.
But then it started kind of breaking, and it was like, well, if you get off JT and you trade Bohm, the money's about the same, and it really starts adding up to holy cow, they could really go get Bo Bichette.
And it's kind of crazy because JT has had the offer from the Phillies for about a month or so. And it's like, if he would have taken that like right away, this
Yeah.
Bo Bichette thing probably isn't possible. So it's a blessing in disguise because JT has really overplayed his hand. Because even if we sign Bo Bichette, man, I just don't know what team is offering him the contract he wants. But I also think that relationship is kind of like, it's not well right now. If you hear the reports of JT complaining about his initial re-signing, even though they made him the highest paid catcher in baseball history,
Uh-huh.
it's just weird with JT. And I've been imploring, and I'm sure you have as well, to get a real four hitter. If Alec Boehm is your four hitter for the fourth straight year, I might lose my freaking top. And I like Alec Boehm, but I'm done with him. Like, thank you for your time, but it's time to go. If Alec Boehm is batting sixth or seventh in your lineup, that's completely fine. But four, and he had a pretty decent postseason this past year against the Dodgers. But here's the thing about Alec Boehm: no one in their right mind is afraid of him. So they're not gonna pitch against Harper. They're not gonna pitch against Schwarber. To where Alec Boehm at best is probably gonna hit a double in the gap. You put Bo Bichette in number four, or you can make the lineup any way you want. Like you said, those top four players are like top 30 in baseball. It just makes everyone's job easier. And they need to sign him. I don't care. And I really think they're the only team that's not the only team that's in it, but the only team that's willing to go the years. Because Boston, I don't think is going to go the years. Toronto, I think they're done because they signed the guy from Japan. He's a third baseman, plays a little outfield, but I think they're signing him to play third. And then Ernie Clement, who just had the postseason of all postseasons, where's he going to play? You're going to make him a utility guy after that postseason he just had? I don't think so. The Dodgers are always a threat, but I think they're a threat in that like 3 or 4 year deal, high AAV, give him some opt outs. But I think Bo, combine that with the Don Mattingly relationship, I just think he's got to be a Philly, right?
Well, yeah. So I would be surprised if he's a Dodger. I from everything you read, it seems like he's a creature of habit, and his home is 10 minutes from the Phillies ballpark down in in Clearwater. He's a Florida kid. I don't know how psyched he'd be to move across the country and have to train somewhere else, and especially for only a 3-year deal. That's kind of uprooting your life and changing it, obviously. I kind of get the sense that he got married 2 weeks ago. The Phillies have a real family-like atmosphere. The Phillies, I agree with you, are the only team that's going to be able to go 6, 7, 8 years because modern front offices, they worry so much about the back end of the deal that they don't think about the front end of the deal. And the Phillies are like, all right, we'll pay at the end of it. And I think that I kind of get the sense that he wants to put his roots down here, and a lot like Bryce did, where he wants to know where he's going to be, where he's going to possibly start a family, and having do you want to go be a Dodger for like $5 more million a year over 3 years, or or have a 7-year deal that's $28 million, and you kind of set up with a place that that there's it's all guaranteed, no opt outs, no trade clause, whatever you need, and kind of go from there. So I really would be surprised if he is not a Philly.
Gotcha. Yeah, and then basically, before I ask you about the Phillies offseason, before all these moves, the point you made about re-signing Kyle Schwarber, it's like you put your chips in. Like, it is win now mode. You got Turner locked up for God knows how long. You got Bryce locked up. You got Schwarber just re-signed. Go high with the years. If that's what it takes to get him, we are trying to win a World Series in the next 3 to 4 years. We'll deal with the 2030 fills when we deal with the 2030 fills. I think they're going to be great because I'm a big Andrew Painter guy, Aiden Miller, big Justin Crawford guy. But put all your chips in, man. And if you have a chance, which they didn't think they had, back to your point of thinking Bo Bichette was even a real possibility, now that he is, and all the reports coming out, can you imagine the backlash in this city if we don't get a Bo Bichette and then you just re-sign JT? Like, I'm still going to watch every game. You're going to watch every game. But you get Bo Bichette, and I made this point on one of my episodes, the buzz in this city from March to October, and the All-Star game is there. I'll be there for the All-Star game. It just is going to rejuvenate this team to where the narrative of them running it back kind of goes away. And my always thing is like the Wake Me Up in October fans. I think they're miserable because the baseball purists like us, we love the spring training, the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday afternoon getaway games. It's a journey, but just like bringing the entire city in, man, go get Bo Bichette.
Yeah.
But just kind of give me your thoughts on the Kyle Schwarber re-signing, Brad Keller, Matt Strahm, like those little intricate moves before the possibility of Bo Bichette coming to the Phillies was even a thought.
Yeah, well, I think that the offseason was already pretty good. I mean, re-signing Schwarber, great, needed him. I freaking love Brad Keller. I when that deal came down, I was like, wow. I didn't think they had the money to go shell out a multi-year $10+ million deal for a guy like Brad Keller, but I think he's going to be locked down. I think that last year was just the first. I think last year was the beginning of what his next kind of run is going to be as a reliever, vintage, kind of mid starter, goes to bullpen, starts throwing 98, and I think he's a stud. So they've made a lot of little interesting bullpen moves that kind of taken a lot of shots, a lot of darts at the dartboard, and seeing who some of these guys and seeing if they stick. The Strahm trade I'm a little worried about just from the standpoint of I thought Tanner Banks was great last year, but I think he's a 5th, 6th inning guy. I don't think he's a high leverage lefty. And obviously we all love Jose Alvarado, but what is he going to look like? I mean, when he came back from the PED suspension, he didn't look good at all. Now, who knows how that was rust or whatever, but that's still a big risk. So, even the guy they got, Bolin from the Royals, has some. It seems like they became obsessed with righties that really were hard on righties this offseason. It seems like every reliever they went after had really good numbers against right-handed hitters, and maybe that's something they're just trying to build out with their bullpen. But it's funny because like Ohtani's a lefty and Soto's a lefty and Freeman's a lefty, so I get the sentiment, but there's also a lot of good lefties in the division / postseason. He just gave away Matt Strahm, so yeah, I think overall it's a pretty good offseason. I was expecting them to re-sign JT. I was hoping for a Bader re-signing,
Yes.
but you keep waiting for that like super creative move from them. The Luzardo move last year was 100%, but kind of just seems like all their chips are in the Bo Bichette market. So yeah, I mean it was fine. It was a little run it back-ish, and the Bo Bichette thing just throws it into a different kind of hemisphere.
Yeah, and back on the Bader point, man, he was one of my favorites. Like when he got to that city, just the way with his crop top, with the way he plays center field, when he crab walks to the
I
ball, I
know.
just felt like he was Philadelphia. Now, when they signed Adolis Garcia, I love that signing. But I was under the notion, like you said, Dave, to make a creative trade, which hasn't happened in a while. I
Yeah,
would want them to trade Marsh, let Justin Crawford play left field because he's a better left fielder than center fielder, and then
uh-huh.
just let Bader roam in center field because we all know he had a career year. Now he did make a swing adjustment. I'm not a hitting coach, but maybe that's like who he is now.
Sure, sure.
But at worst, you're getting a guy that is a great in the clubhouse, a great leader, a winner, a ball player, and plays Gold Glove defense in center field. Now his initial what he wanted was 3 years 45, which is like kind of genuinely insane. But I get it. That's what you do in the offseason. You aim high. And he's still out there. I'm not banking on it, but I would not be surprised if his market just isn't there. And then the Phillies get wind of that, make a trade for Marsh, and then sign Bader to like a 2-year 20. But the thing with that is it's so tricky because let's say they sign Bader tomorrow, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then the other teams know with Marsh, well, he probably has to get traded, right? So the value goes down. And then on the vice versa, if you trade Marsh tomorrow, and then you go back to Bader, he's like, well, now you guys need me. So that was always a tricky situation. But I'm like, you're the president of baseball operations. You get paid for a living. Like, try to work it out. But I understand, like, sometimes you just career year guys, you don't re-sign him. But I was really hoping for a Harrison Bader reunion.
Yeah, I mean he's the man. I love Harrison Bader, and I think he wants to come back. I think that he would love to be a Philly, but yeah, I still could. I just refuse to believe that there's not some kind of path there. I would much rather have Bader back and Crawford and left than. And I think people have gone a little too far with Marshy. I mean, he did hit 300 over the last 3 months of the season, and does play a Gold Glove left field. Now we know that he can't left-handed pitching, and it's not like his numbers in the postseason are inspiring at all.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that I would love that. That's also on top of getting Bichette, having to trade either Bohm or Stott, probably Bohm.
Yeah.
It's an extra moving part, but like if it comes down to it, and you can tell me I can get Bader back or JT back at the same money, I think I'd rather have Bader.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm with you. I love Harrison Bader. I guess I'd just be surprised.
Yeah, and I like Marsh too because him as a left field platoon player, which is his role, which what it should be, he has over 800 OPS career lifetime against right-handed pitching, and he plays Gold Glove defense. So I wouldn't be upset. It just gives me when you trade for a player and you just kind of feel it instantly. I get it; it was 2.5 months, but I feel like those are the guys to where the people in the front office might be like analytically, well, that doesn't make sense based on his value, but you got to have feel for baseball. You got to have feel for certain ball players that fit the city. And I think Harrison Bader did that. And dude, he got injured in game 1. What happens if he doesn't get hurt and he's playing game 2, game 3, game 4?
Who knows?
He might be down Broad Street celebrating.
I know. And Adolis becomes a way more intriguing signing if Bichette's here, and then it's not, oh my god, he's gonna be hitting 4. It's Adolis is about a 5th or 6th, and there's like a possible 30 home run guy.
Yeah. And I think you'll appreciate this. So I broke this down on one of my episodes about Adolis, right? And even if he struggles, right? We have Gabriel Ranconis Jr. waiting in AAA, who I think can mash righties to where if Adolis struggles, you can make Adolis a platoon player similar to Casty and then give Gabriel Ranconis a chance because I think that power is real. But if you use him properly, because his splits against lefties are god awful, I just think there's some minor league depth to where the Dolis Garcia, if it falls flat on his face like the Max Kepler thing, it's not a situation to where it's a lefty righty platoon. It's a lefty coming in to take more of the at bats compared to Kepler, who struggled mightily. And then we find out he was on PEDs towards the end of the year.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was resurgence, but I think the Phillies have a real chance with their depth to make some moves mid-season to where I don't think the Adolis Garcia has as much weight as the Max Kepler signing did.
No, and Max Kepler never was good. Max Kepler had one okay year, and it was always just the analytics people being like, "Nah, we actually hits the ball hard," and it's like, well, at least Adolis Garcia is 2 years removed from an unbelievable season. So, I guess I'd bet on, not bet on, we'll see with him, but at least there's a track record of actual success, whereas Max Kepler is always theoretical success.
Yeah, and if Adolis Garcia hits a moonshot in Red October, that's your $10 million right there. Could you imagine CBP in Red October? Adolis Garcia pumping his chest, man. I need that.
I know. I feel you. Yeah.
But so the last point of this podcast, I'm just going to get your viewpoint on the 2026 Phils, just kind of how confident you are. Obviously, it's relying on the Bo Bichette signing. Let's go into the notion that Bo Bichette is a Phil. Let's speak it into existence.
Yeah.
Kind of give me your thoughts on 2026.
Well, listen, Bo Bichette makes them, I mean, they're still probably not better than the Dodgers, but they're like right there. And it's just one of those moves that I think puts them over the top. I think Bo Bichette's the difference between being in the World Series or hopefully winning the World Series, but like being in the World Series and possibly being a wild card or missing the playoffs. Like I think they're good. I think they're going to be good. I think a lot of things also went their way last year, and these guys are they just need Bo Bichette to like really cement themselves as the second best team in baseball and second best team in the National League. Like I think that's the difference here. I think that if they get them World Series, at least NLCS against the Dodgers, whatever, and if they don't, they're just in the mix like everyone else. And you have to hope that they're playing good baseball at the right time. You have to hope that they are healthy. I think that's where I'm at, where he's the difference between World Series or not. And I know that's like a super big, bold thing to throw out, I guess. But like, I think he's that important. I think if they just re-sign JT, it's going to be a dud. I think that's a big old dud. So it's imperative. And I think the Phillies, I would be floored if they got this far, everything out there, Dave Dombrowski being Dave Dombrowski, John Middleton being John Middleton, if they're like, nah, we're all right. That's not been their MO, especially when Dombrowski targets a star. Outside of the Japanese market, when they target a star, they generally get the job done. So I feel confident about that, and I think that if they get Bo Bichette, they're gonna at least be in the NLCS or World Series.
Yeah, and I kind of feel the same way. I'm always like optimistic, like because I want to go to its season. Even if they didn't sign Bo Bichette, I'm going to be optimistic just because it helps me get through the season. Because I never want to be like that miserable fan that's like, wake me up in October, this team's not good enough. Because if you get in, man, anything can happen. But like you said, if you get Bo Bichette, that just enhances your chances that much more. Because the Dodgers are a legit super team to where how do you compete with a super team? You get better players. You have the money, you sign them, and hit just that top four, Turner, Bichette, Harper, Schwarber, with that pitching, because I think Zach Wheeler's going to go back to his form. We don't know that. But you got Christopher Sanchez, you got Jesus Luzardo. I think Andrew Painter's going to be a really good player to where it is time to push all your chips in because you've already done it with the Turner, Schwarber, Harper signings, right? So I think the Phillies have a real shot to win a World Series if they get Bo Bichette.
Well, yeah, and it makes the eventual growing pains you're going to have to go through with Painter and Crawford and Aiden. It makes it that much easier to handle because you have another star that should be able to, and it helps you in the wind down of Harper and Turner and Schwarber. It helps you have someone else that is a little younger that can carry the load a little bit. As those guys get a little bit long in the tooth, although they're already pretty long in the tooth, but it just kind of helps from that standpoint as well. Just a youngish guy that can help carry some of the burden.
Perfect. And that will do it for this episode of Baseball for Maniacs. Jack, thank you so much for coming on. I look forward to your live reaction on High Hopes with you and James Seltzer to the Bo Bichette signing, hopefully in the coming days. But thank you again for coming on. It's always great to talk Phillies baseball with someone that feels the way I feel about Phillies baseball.
Of course, man. Anytime.
Perfect. All right. You have a good one, brother.
All right. You too.